maybe you could share with me where we have used technology to make things easier?
They were using smartphones that were issued to everyone.
Recently, our Prime Minister was having a chat with Elon Musk. Most probably Starlink would be able to provide internet.
The 60 satellite, at first I thought it was some strange comet, but it turned out it was Starlink. So. You want people to kind of think of lifetime learning too. Learning isn't about just going to school and checking boxes. It's about being inquisitive and wanting to develop yourself and help others. So, and there's so many new and interesting ways that you can try to create the energy that you hope people take to school. I mean, I didn't love all about school either.
Yeah.
You'd get through it and you'd have certain pieces you liked more than others, but there's so many good ways to create learning that's more enjoyable for the students and actually more effective then.
Yeah. I'm just dwelling on those four boys and 4 girls, right? Talking to their principal or their teacher, and then just going through, asking them like, okay, or questioning them about this is what we want. That's perfect. I would have loved to see that. That's just amazing. There are a few things that I wanted to touch base on. The change that we were talking about. I personally want to go ahead and end child poverty in Nepal. That's one of my personal goals. I don't want any kid to be able to go ahead and not have basic education, basic healthcare, basic place to live in. What are we doing towards child poverty? Is there anything specific plan is working on?
I think one of you have to take some assumption that education is a way out of poverty, at least in part, and so access is an issue, and it's hard because some of the government folks were talking about their budgets, and do you spend a lot of your budget trying to help people who are 2 or 3 hours walk from school getting school and thinking about how to make sure you create access for those versus continuing to invest in the communities that are easier to get to? I think the answer has to be a little of both. You have to have reach and get at least some baseline throughout. And maybe technology will help reach some of these more remote areas. Maybe there'll be some innovation on ways to not make it a 2 or 3 hour walk in dorms and the whole thing.
Within the 80 countries all around the world that plan is at, is there any specific stories that maybe you could share with me where we have used technology to make things easier?
So one of the programs I really enjoyed listening to and visiting and talking to folks out was something called flexible education. And I don't know if that's a technical term or not, but that's what they called it. This was actually in a remote area in Guatemala, and they were creating a delivery model where it was very customized to the individual. There were some 35-year-olds in the room that were still trying to get their high school diploma, but they could only give 1 day a week to it, so it was taking a very long time, and because of their other responsibilities, and then children and others that had lower access, and they were using smartphones that were issued to everyone as what they viewed as a basic right, because then they could have much more customized programming. And the teachers were more coaches and helping people through their different... So it wasn't the school you and I went to where we all learned together at the same time the same things. This is a much more customized model. And so, it's interesting to see some of those. But and I hate to put it all down to the smartphone, but it does matter to have access to a lot of content. And there are cheaper ways to provide those than what you might pay for the full Apple phone or whatever. But I think there can be more just access to, electricity, just basic things that we were trying to help a group innovate, coming up with solar-powered batteries so that they could have light in their homes
Where
at night.
was this?
That was in Africa, in Senegal. And, we got together with the university, and some of it worked, some of it didn't work, but also getting them interested in the engineering of it.
Yeah.
So you could create a workshop, help them figure out how to create these batteries. And they had to choose from several different types of projects that they wanted to work on. But the point was they were trying to come up with a $1 or $2 a person solar battery so that they could fix a problem which was affecting their schooling. They couldn't get to their schooling because they had no light at night to do homework and those sort of things. So some of these basic things we take for granted in many places. You have to get in. And actually, that's why early on in the programs, you have to ask what are the problems to make sure we're solving the right ones.
And we are prioritizing the right ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm just thinking about something that happened a couple of days back. I'll just touch base on it and then I'll let it be. There's an internet service called Starlink, and recently our Prime Minister was having a chat with Elon Musk in Nepal. And it just crossed my mind that definitely where we cannot provide access to teachers, but there are kids, we could definitely provide internet, and we could provide, a customized service where the kids could learn with the teacher probably somewhere in Kathmandu. And most probably Starlink would be able to provide internet.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking far ahead in the future. Right. Maybe.
I know. I was in a mountain somewhere, and actually in New Zealand, and looked up, and we could see the Starlink going across the sky. The 60 satellite. At first, I thought it was some strange comet, but it turned out it was Starlink. So, and they're using technology, and unfortunately, in some of the wars and so forth, to also provide. But in crisis, that's also another way to bring in. Electricity and access quickly. Yeah. So there have to be ways to do it, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about now. Obviously, in the remote places of our country, we could definitely go ahead and provide internet in the future, and that would be a way for kids to go ahead and have that education, even if the teachers can't be there, and have custom education down there.
Yeah, and I can imagine that some community. Helps, but even if you could get even small clusters of kids together or people together that want to learn together and then provide that sort of input, you probably can coach the teachers or teach the teachers how to use that in a different way. But it's got to be quite different. So, but I think trying to pilot and experiment with some of these things is a way to think about leapfrog.
Hand in hand with technology. That was the question that I asked you when we were off air. I'm just going to touch base on that. Kids hand in hand with technology, even when you were in Janakpur, right? When you were there, were they inquisitive about any kind of computers or anything specific?
So I thought it was interesting because they said they were putting technology in the schools, but then what they were talking about were white smart boards, which I think we stopped using quite a long time ago. They weren't that effective. So I was a little worried that their idea of what kind of technologies could be used were a little bit outdated. So I think making sure we're really finding the right models for where, but it's hard because teachers and administrators they didn't grow up in that same era, and so they don't. So we have to. That's another place where getting youth more involved in solving the problems. The 20-year-olds of the world are much more tuned in than I am. And so getting their help on what's possible and innovating and making sure that when we do put technology dollars at play that they're in the right spots. So I don't know that we have that worked out quite yet.
तपाईले हाम्रो क्लिप एकदमै एन्जोय गर्नुभयो होला. अब पुरै भिडियो हेर्नको लागि चाहिँ युट्युबमा सब्स्क्राइब गर्न नबिर्सिनु होला. व्यास मिडिया नेटवर्क.